Greetings shippers, welcome back, and it's that time. You guys asked for it, nay, demanded it, nay, needed more Loki. You wanted more Loki everything, Loki crossovers, Loki comic ships, but for now, let's just dive into Loki Lost and Forgotten ships part 2. We'll once more be looking at those MCU Loki ships that burst into the fore, be it through canon or something else, and burned brightly for a little while, and then they just faded a little. They didn't quite take root the same way as others, and slowly they left, leaving those shipping them to wonder what exactly happened, and those just joining to lament that there just really isn't that much for these pairs. Not as much as they wish anyway. If you missed part 1 and you need to hear about taser tricks, Black Frost, or Frost Shield, part 1 is the video for you, and lots of people in particular didn't know about Frost Shield, so I'm really glad to have introduced that to so many people, and maybe it'll get its own video. Until then, please be sure to check out part 1. You can click the card or the link will be down below. Follow me on social media to see what we're working on, or just to chit chat about fandom. It's a good time, I swear. And now, Loki has waited long enough. Let's get to those lost and forgotten ships. 5 of them for part 2. Just like last time, we must start at the beginning of Loki's meteoric rise to fandom popularity in the MCU, and indirectly beyond, taking us back to 2011 with his first MCU appearance in Thor. Also like last time, these will just be quick blurbs, not full analyses of the ships. So if you want to see one in more detail, please leave that down below. Aside from the big, most obvious and controversial pairing of Thorky, which we have also covered, you know the drill, Card and Link, the film yielded many other ships. Among them was one that stood out for its link back to the Thor comics and Norse mythology itself, that being Warfrost, the pairing of Loki and Sif, also known as Sifki. This ship was going strong after the first Thor film, with many fans noticing little glances and character similarities that drew them to the pairing. The way both actors played their scenes left many eager to explore both their past and their futures, and to dive into the potential they saw in two individuals both outsiders for different reasons. One for her femininity and the other for his fighting style, both seeking to prove themselves and gain affection from people from whom it was not necessarily forthcoming. Adding on the mythology to the pair also gave shippers much to play with, as did the fact that Sif's role as Thor's love interest was essentially done away with. In fact, when Thor 2 came around, a love triangle plot was entirely scrapped, leaving Sif with little to do. The pairing also did well after that film as a result, with many building upon the already existing fan and narratives that had sprung up around this ship, or potentially noticing some of the little interactions and hidden glances that they hadn't seen before, or others filling in for that missing love triangle plot, which they felt would have actually been interesting, particularly if Loki was added to the mix. Perhaps a love square. So what happened? Well, post-Thor, Loki really exploded in terms of popularity and found himself paired with many people, and the lack of focus on Thor's supporting cast did not help matters, nor did Sif's complete absence from Thor 3, Thor Ragnarok. However, that absence kept her alive, so for some, this ship still sails, and hope still lives. It still has its fans and people still produce work, but the enthusiasm that once propelled it forward as one of the most viable fandom ships has dimmed. However, for those looking to dive into it, it is a very creative pair with lots of intricate works that delve into history, mythology, and a lot of just deep psychological issues. It's definitely one of the more intriguing of the lost ships, which some would argue is also the case for this next Thor-based pair, Dashing Frost, that being the pairing of Fandral and Loki. Now, Fandral is the Robin Hood-esque and, well, dashing, vainer member of the Warriors 3, and for many, this ship is a bit harder to follow, as Loki and Fandral don't really have a history of intense interactions in any medium, and in the MCU films in particular, scenes are sparse, until Thor 2, where they shared a sequence, but shippers jumped on board from the first film. So why? Well, while it was by no means a rule, the shippers interested in this pairing are usually ones who are interested in fleshing out Thor's world, particularly in terms of past adventures and his companions' backstories. So many fics deal with past interactions or again add mythic elements, and like Froster and Sifki, like to play with the taboo or seductive erratic elements of falling for Loki. So even if a fic is not a high school AU, of which this fandom has many, it may still play with those dynamics. Thor's crew is the jockey popular crowd and Loki is the nerdy outcast, and Fandral is the dashing Lothario who finds himself having a crush on someone he never thought possible. The pairing continued on through the Avengers and got a real boost in Thor 2 when they shared a sarcastic sequence. However, while there was a brief revival, it was short-lived, as this was a very overlooked pairing to begin with, and with the untimely demise of Thor's supporting cast in Thor 3, few found reason to take a look at this couple or jump on board. There are of course die-hard fans, but it remains to be seen if some kind of revival will occur to give this ship new life. Now onto the realm of characters who have never met, but are both extremely popular and often shipped. We're talking talking about Winter Frost, the pairing of Bucky the Winter Soldier and Loki, in a ship that some feel is a missed opportunity to call lucky. Now the fics for this pair are interesting, as people take it in a wide array of directions. From mischievous Loki saving Bucky from the fall, to him trying to manipulate the Winter Soldier and finding himself being manipulated in turn, to both finding common ground and ways to heal their respective pain together. There are also fics where they are brought together by Tony, as Tony being the one to seek out and find Bucky was a popular headcanon post-Avengers and Captain America the Winter Soldier. And of course, Frost Iron is one of Loki's most popular fan pairings. And then of course, there is Smut. This ship allows one a lot of wiggle room, and can match with many different interpretations of each character, and allows for either quite elaborate AUs, or stories that stick close and are what-ifs, or to borrow a DC phrase, Elseworld retellings of the events in question. This one of course skirts by some shippers, as not only do both of these characters have more prominent pairings, but having never met, it can be a hindrance for certain shippers, and some feel it would be quite a toxic coupling. However, for those who enjoy it, this pairing maintains itself quietly along the sidelines, as really canon has little impact on it since it had to divert from it to exist in the first place. Now, our next pairing is a bit baffling to some, for while the characters have shared a scene, it wasn't the most positive one out there.
Enough! You are all of you beneath me. I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by that.
It's time for Gamma Frost, the pairing of Bruce Banner / the Hulk and Loki. Now these two clashed in one of the most memed lines and sequences of 2012's Avengers, wherein the premier fight between Loki and the Avengers is definitively put to an end by Hulk, well, smashing Loki. Now while for many that was the end of it, others were intrigued and thought that Loki would be as well, in terms of meeting such a powerful creature. What's one bone-crushing beating to a god? A lot of works deal with a curious and annoying trickster Loki badgering a world-weary Bruce, in a tweaked mirror of his and Tony's relationship, though it can of course be deeper, both perhaps finding common ground over the need to control their anger, as there is great danger in it being unleashed. Some feel that the necessity to keep a lid on himself that Bruce lives by would grant him the patience to be able to put up with Loki's more tempestuous nature, and that Loki would want to know more about the duality of this man and could perhaps help him come to terms with both parts of himself. Two individuals viewed as monsters by others and themselves, finding peace in each other. Now of course many reject this pairing out of hand, given the viciousness of the beating and the fear that Loki's more irritating character traits would trigger a Hulk rampage. Not to mention Thor 3 seemed to give an indication, though it was played comedically, of the lingering fear and unease Loki feels towards the Hulk, giving credence to a moderately popular fan theory that Loki suffers from PTSD over this incident. Now while this ship of course has some devoted fans, Loki and the Hulk are not being searched for that at the time of this recording. Instead, they are part of a popular Avengers 4 fan theory that involves the idea of Loki not only being alive, but masquerading as Bruce Banner. So if that sounds intriguing to you, be sure to check out one of your favorite theory channels to hear more about it. Now our last pairing for this vid brings us more up to date with the MCU canon, to a pairing that many are surprised didn't take off. That being the pairing that seems to go by the amusing name of Strokey, but also goes by Strange Frost or Dr. Frost, although neither are as fun to say as Strokey. That being the pairing between Doctor Strange and Loki. Now this pairing has its roots in the comic verse, though it is not overly popular there either. However, the similarities between the characters are there, the one people jump to most often being their sorcery skills and sharp focus. So when it was announced that Doctor Strange would be joining the Marvel Filmverse, some were quick to make the connection and eager to see these two interact with their movieverse personas. Before they did eventually meet, fans began to concoct scenarios that would draw the two together, such as Strange being forced to ascend to and investigate Asgard, or Loki being drawn to such a powerful new Sorcerer Supreme, or Hurt Comfort involving Strange's hands, or Loki's true form, just to name a few. And more fans were galvanized when a post-credit sequence promised the meeting of Strange and Thor, and when Thor 3 was released, both brothers shared a brief scene with the Sorcerer Supreme that, while enjoyable, did little to ignite the shipping front, though it did present some compelling scenarios for those willing to entertain them, and the few it did convert. Strange somehow ending up babysitting a powerless Loki, Loki coming to assert his magical dominance, and of course, team-up fics. While some felt these two would bounce well off of each other and had good banter potential, it simply didn't really click, and Strange instead found his fan pairing in Avengers Infinity War, a ship that had already started prior, but was catapulted into the foreground by their on-screen banter, this of course being Iron Strange. Sorry, Cloak. He still loves you. So why did this ship not really take root? Were these two too similar? Was it due to the lukewarm reception that many had to Doctor Strange? Or was it simply a case of a lack of narrative and character compatibility? Whatever the case, Strokey finds itself in the group of lost Loki ships. So you made it to the end, and yes, my hair is now up. It's hot hair. So which of these Loki ships did you ship, if any? And do you need a part 3? Or maybe you need some Loki crossover ships because you need to know about Loki and Elsa or Loki and Maleficent, and those are both real things. As always, leave everything, all of your thoughts and feelings down below. I love reading them. Please be sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and of course hit that bell so you can be notified when I post new videos, which is sporadic but often at the same time. You never know. As always, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to enjoy fandom and shipping with me. I always really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon. Bye-bye. This has been Shipper's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Special thanks to all of my patrons' names on the side. There are as always new videos coming soon, so stay tuned, for there are as many ships out there as there are stars in the sky.